be doing a front raise variation with a band mounted behind us like this. And this, in my opinion, is a really great beginner front raise. The reason for that is because with the band mounted behind us, it's going to actually help us to keep our shoulder blades down and back during the exercise rather than our upper back and shoulders rounding forward. When I was first learning the front raise with dumbbells, because there's so much weight way out to the front of us, it's very hard to not let all of this stuff cave forward. It takes a lot of strength to keep it pulled back, and this is going to aid us in doing that. And I personally feel like it's going to also just to help build that that movement pattern where you understand what your body position is supposed to be, like this, so that then when you transition to doing the movement with a dumbbell, you'll know what that feeling is to have all of that kind of pulled back. Now, the other reason that you might want to try this exercise is if you do have any issues with delicate shoulders. You can try this one and see if it doesn't cause you pain, when others might. So that's something to keep in mind too. The last little thing I want to mention about this variation is that it's going to work the front of our shoulder muscle in a different way also. That's because when we have it mounted behind us, the muscle is going to already be experiencing tension down here while our arms are straight down, and then all the way up to shoulder height. When we do the dumbbell version, the muscle's really not doing any work at all while it's hanging down because gravity's just pulling us down and we're just hanging out. And then it's as we come up that the muscle works more and more. So with the band behind us like this, that band is pulling back. We're having to resist that using the front of the shoulder muscle. So just working the muscle in a different way. And depending on how you set things up, you can even work the front of the shoulder back into extension a little bit, where the hands go behind the body, putting that muscle on stretch and working against that. So just a neat way to work the muscle. We're looking to do 2 to 3 sets of 10 to 12 reps. All you need is one band and a place to anchor it fairly low. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, let's get into position for the behind you front delt raise. You're gonna mount a band. To me, the most effective way is to mount it as low as you can, but anywhere from the ground up to around hip height can work. I feel like the front delt muscle will work through more of the range of motion better if you mount the band lower. That's just my experience. Then you'll take your band and loop it through so that you have equal lengths coming out of each side, okay? Now you're gonna turn away from the band, from where it's anchored. You're gonna face away from it. The band is gonna come from the anchor to the pinky side of the palm, and then out, the edge will come out the thumb side, okay? So that's how you're gonna hold it. You can always kind of wrap it up and everything, that would be fine too, but just the idea is that it comes from the anchor first through that pinky side of the palm, and I'll talk about why in a minute, okay? So we're gonna be like that. And you're gonna go ahead and step out, and you wanna try to center yourself, your two feet, so that they're on either side of where the band is mounted. You'll see that from the front in a little bit. So we're like that. And you want to try to be far enough away from the anchor that you've got some tension on the band when your arms are straight down at your sides already, but also be able to lift your arms out to the front of you all the way to shoulder height. Okay, so you don't want to have it so tight here that that's as far as you can get, right? But you also don't want to have it so loose that your arms aren't working at all until the last quarter of the movement. Does that make sense? You can play with those things by, how strong your band is, how far away from the anchor you are, how much of it's wrapped around your hand. Those are all things that will kind of change the feeling of things and help you to find what works for you. Okay, now our hands here, our palms are gonna be facing behind us as well, okay? Palms facing behind us, straight down at our sides. Now there's 2 different stances that you can do. A good starting stance as a beginner will be to have your feet parallel with each other. So just like this, slight bend in the knees, slight bend in the hips here, pull those shoulder blades in and down the back, right? And then we'll be doing that exercise that way. I'll show you in a second. You can also do a staggered stance, which is 1 foot more forward and 1 back. This can be good for using more resistance once you're getting stronger. If you want to use a nice strong band and you have a parallel stance, it just gets hard. You start falling backwards and you just can't, and you have to lean forward, but then it doesn't work your front delt as well. So that staggered stance can really be a help. For now, let's just start with that parallel stance, feet about hip width apart, toes pointed forward. Hi, I'm Razel. If you're a woman in your over 40s like myself and you've been wanting to get into strength training, but up to this point you've just felt intimidated and worried that you'd get hurt and just don't know about proper form, I really try to break each of these movements down in a way that's understandable and makes you feel safe and comfortable doing them. If you like my style of teaching, I have additional things over on my website, like common mistakes to avoid for each movement, ways to make them harder, ways to make them easier, and things like that. If that sounds good to you, come on over to my website at inspirefulwomen.com. So the reason that we want to have the band coming to the pinky side first and then to the thumb side edge coming out is because when we do it that way, well, first of all, it's going to clear our ladies' hips better that way. So that's the first reason. But the other thing is actually that band, as we pull, is going to be trying to pull our arm into external rotation. It's, right, since it's coming out the pinky side, it's going to want to pull our hand out towards our pinky. And so our front delt is going to have to work hard to keep that palm facing this way. And that's actually one of the functions of the front delt muscle, is to do internal rotation. So that the band's going to be pulling that way, and we're going to have to resist that to keep the band, our palms this way. So it's just going to actually help work the muscle in another way. Last thing before we do the movement, remember to gently engage your abdominal muscles. You want to kind of gently pull them in, pull the belly button in towards the spine. And our goal here is to be nice and upright. There is a tendency to kind of lean our body forward to counteract the pull of the band pulling us back. But what you want to do is actually stay upright, not lean forward. And what will help you to do that without falling backwards is you can always bend the knees a little bit more. So basically, as you bend the hips and knees, that gets more of your body muscles involved to help you stay upright. Okay, so that would be the strategy you would use if you find that the band is pulling you back. If it gets too bad, you can do that staggered stance, okay? So here we are, nice and upright, palms facing behind us, shoulder blades down and back, a little bend in the hip and knee. Now all we're gonna do is stretch those arms out to the front of us to shoulder height, and then come back down to our sides, like so. Now when you're doing this, you should be feeling a lot of activity here in the front of the shoulder. That's where you want to be feeling it. Now when you're comfortable with that, you can always come forward a little more, and you can even let the hands, instead of stopping in line here with your hips, you can let them go behind you a little bit. That's going to stretch the front delt muscle a little more and get a little more range of motion, as long as you can still get to shoulder height. So that's what this looks like. The arms going a little bit more behind the body, just a little bit, not to discomfort. Now that staggered stance I was showing you about, just 1 foot forward, 1 foot back, and again, try not to be leaned forward. You want to be nice and upright, but that can really help you to kind of plant yourself so that you can use more tension, a stronger resistance. Now when you do it this way, you want to switch legs, either halfway through a set, or if you're doing 2 sets, do one side for each set. So you'll switch legs, right, just to keep things even. Make sure to keep your hips squared to the front of you. Now from this angle, what you can see is how the band is between my legs, right? So you want to be to the middle of it. You don't want to be over here to this side or to this side. Hopefully I'm good. I moved. All right, so that's that position that you can see there. And we're just going to lift those arms out to the front to shoulder height, and then control the lowering back down. Now this is with the parallel stance, right, where my feet are in line. The staggered stance, we have the 1 foot forward, 1 back. Remember to make sure that the hips are squared to the front though when you do it. Remember, the advantage of the staggered stance is that you can use a stronger band usually while maintaining proper body position. There's one more little thing I just wanted to point out once again. I mentioned this in the starting pointers video, but pay attention when you're doing this exercise to the positioning of your body when your arms are up here to the front of you. Pay attention to what's going on in your upper back and the back of your shoulders, okay? So the whole idea here is to learn a good movement pattern where even though our arms are coming forward, our shoulders and back aren't coming forward with it, okay? Because that's a common thing for us to do without realizing it. This movement is actually aiding because the band is naturally pulling us back. It's like less muscle activity for us. We don't have to do it all on our own. So it helps us kind of maintain that position while the arms come forward. So just kind of think about that as you do the movement. Like, just try to get used to how things feel back here, how you feel, because then later when you transition to doing a dumbbell front raise, you're gonna remember, like, oh, this is what it feels like this. It's not like this, right? This is all nice and back there, and this is gonna help train that. Thanks for being with me today, ladies. Once again, I'm Rizal, and if you're a woman in your over 40s like myself and you'd like to do full-length follow-along workouts in beautiful outdoor nature settings with me as well, using these very same movements that I've been teaching, I also create those. You'll find those over on my website, so please join me over there. That's at inspirefulwomen.com.